Over 200 years back, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann coined the law of cure. He said that delusion and ignorance is disease and awareness is cure. Now let's unpack it a bit. You have different levels of delusion and different levels of ignorance. Very deep, mid-level, and very shallow, just like in a swimming pool. And a lot of the things that need work, that need to be innovated, cleaned up, altered, changed, turbocharged, exist in the shallow realm of our delusion and ignorance. And in that shallow end, now we see it, now we don't, and we know it's there, but there's something that doesn't prompt us into action, that doesn't take us to the next level, and we kind of just embrace it like business as usual. The moment those delusions and ignorance come into the bright light of very sharp awareness, two things happen. Number one, now you're fully aware of that delusion and ignorance. Your consciousness is completely and totally engaged. And as you start dwelling in that space of awareness, a gap starts presencing itself. And it's only the gap when it presences itself that you'll find yourself in automatic action, in effortless action to find the solution, because now the inventor in you has got awakened. And unless the inventor in you has got awakened, the energy to sustain over a long period of time, to come up with an innovation, build your product or service, and then keep tweaking it till you finally succeed. The energy and the drive and the motivation to keep working till you create the breakthrough is going to come from a gap that you experience very deep inside you. So this whole distinction is called presencing the gap as opposed to telling the gap. When you tell somebody the gap, it's kind of just like a little as an irritant to something, and that doesn't touch them, move them, inspire them into action. So the goal of leadership is to touch, move, and inspire yourself and your team into very powerful action to come up with very strong innovations, and these innovations would then lead to all kinds of breakthrough results. So from moving things from dim awareness, because business owners are very smart, they are aware of so many things, they're extremely well read, they network a lot, they have these amazing conversations, so there's a certain level of dim awareness that they have about everything, but that doesn't presence the gap for them. And if at all it presences a gap, it's a conceptual gap as opposed to an operative gap. An operative gap takes over the entire economy, the internal economy. The internal economy is your mind, your body, your soul, your, that will to go create, make a difference, make things happen. That's only going to happen when the gap is presenced and it activates, it triggers something inside you where you say, no more, I need to find a solution for this, I need to create a breakthrough. So this is the whole context, or this is the place from where the energy of innovation is born. Once that energy of innovation is born, the next step is, how are you going to now process that gap and work with the gap? All innovation for products and services needs to come from a very powerful space, and that space is unmet needs. And the problem with finding unmet needs is we don't have the language to describe or articulate or define what is an unmet need, nor do our customers have that language. So Tony Ulwick, who's the pioneer of outcome-driven innovation, based on the jobs to be done theory has got a very elegant, way in which you can work with eliciting the unmet needs through a qualitative and a quantitative process. And once you find those unmet needs, innovations become a piece of cake, because innovation is about solving unmet needs through your product and your service, or the combination of the two. Now, as you start working and you start moving forward, there will be roadblocks, and those roadblocks come from bottlenecks, because the throughput of any system is governed by the capacity of the bottleneck. So as you start moving forward, you will need to work with the theory of constraints to identify the bottleneck, because when you work and develop and clean up and change and alter and beautify and make more powerful things which are not bottlenecks in the system, you're just going to have a pretty looking product. You're going to have a service which is very impressive but doesn't produce the result. So you start with presencing the gap. From there you move to finding the unmet needs, and from the unmet needs, the next movement is for you to identify the bottlenecks that are there in your delivery of your product, delivery of your system, or how your customers and clients are engaging. Somewhere there's a bottleneck which is preventing that result or that throughput or that desired outcome that you're looking for from coming through. Now, once you start that journey, the next level is for us to look at how can we make this effortless and repeatable, because when something is effortless and repeatable, you're laying the foundation of scaling up your organization. For this, we look at dynamics of strategy, and in dynamics of strategy, there is a very powerful articulation called asset stocks. So asset stocks are assets which behave like stocks. In other words, assets that develop over time. So there's an opening balance, there is an addition, there is some depletion, there is a closing balance, and it is this closing balance of all these key assets, and every organization has 30 key asset stocks that govern its throughput, that govern its effortlessness, that govern its scaling up, that govern how the customers are being served. And lastly, we want to distinguish between Michael Porter's approach of growing a business and Peter Drucker's approach of growing a business. Michael Porter's diktat is, focus on competition, come up with competitive advantage, find out chinks in their armor, create entries of barrier. So in other words, your entire focus is on competition, and your entire focus is on how can you win the race against competition. Whereas Peter Drucker's diktat is very, very simple. It says, create a customer, serve your customer. If your customer is served and happy, that's the highest level of competitive advantage. Because why would anybody want to switch from your product and your service with whatever the competition comes and does? So when you look at this totality of this, it's giving us a clear path, a very easy path on how can we simplify business, how can we simplify innovation, and how can we make everything work.